Hey guys, Paul Macetta here with InfluenceMaster.com, and I just wanted to take a moment to kind of talk about the importance of influence and adding, the ability to influence others and persuasion to your repertoire of tactics that you use to become successful in life. It's my opinion and my experience that the ability to influence and persuade ultimately supersedes every single attribute that you can possibly bring to the table, including your education, your skill, your ability, your knowledge, your talent, your persistence. And the reason why is simple. You can have every single one of those things, but at some point you're going to need the help or the cooperation of somebody else to truly capitalize off of them. And the example that I always give is, you could graduate from Harvard Law School and know everything there possibly is to know about law. But if you can't convince a judge, a jury, or at the very least your clients that you know what you're talking about and that you're an expert in your field, you will most likely not be very successful as a lawyer. So the importance of having the ability to convey your message and to influence and persuade people to understand you is extremely important, and it's something that if you have not learned, you should be learning it as soon as possible. It's something you should definitely invest your time and energy into as soon as possible. In fact, the most successful people on the planet, whether they are professional athletes, Hollywood celebrities, doctors, lawyers, school teachers, anybody who has ever done anything great in life and has made a positive impact on the world has definitely had the ability to influence and persuade other people, especially influence. You see, people think that influence and persuasion are actually the same thing, but they're not. Persuasion is a part of influence. Persuasion is when you can effectively gain compliance from someone that at one point might have saw things a little bit different than you. So, you have something in mind and they have something in mind, and the goal is to reach a mutual agreement, and so you use persuasion to get them to do what you want them to do. Now, influence is something different. Influence is who you are. It's what you're about. Influence is true power, because influence is when you can impact people, okay, to do what you want them to do just because of who you are. You might not necessarily have to talk directly to them or have to try to sell them anything. They will simply listen to you because of who you are. That's because you have become extremely influential. I give the example of Oprah Winfrey all the time with this. Oprah is extremely influential, okay? That's why every year, hundreds of thousands of companies send in products to her show with the hope that she will make a mention of them, even if it's for 30 seconds, because they realize that just a 30-second endorsement from somebody like Oprah Winfrey is going to catapult their sales. And the best part is, Oprah doesn't even have to be a recognized expert in their market. Okay, it doesn't matter what the product is. Just the fact that she's talking about it is going to have an extremely powerful effect on sales, because people listen to her. They trust her. And it's because of her credibility. Credibility and trust are a big part of influence. And when you can focus on those two things and create a reputation for yourself where people know that you're extremely reputable and people are that you're extremely credible and people can trust you, that's how you build influence, okay? Now, years ago, there was a man by the name of Aristotle, which I'm sure plenty of you heard of in history class or at some point in your life. And he's the one that basically, I wouldn't say he invented, persuasion and influence, but he was probably the first person to touch on the concept of it. But the difference between the days when Aristotle lived and today, there are a lot of differences, actually. Back then, information was a lot more scarce than it is today. So in other words, barter was probably the biggest way that people exchanged favors among each other. So I would tell you something that was extremely valuable, and then you would in turn do something for me or reciprocate in some way. And that's kind of how the influence process worked. The problem today is that today's world is a lot different than it was back then, and information is not as scarce as it used to be. In fact, that's part of the reason why the rules have changed. Okay? Some of the rules are the same, but the way that you apply them is different because of things like the internet. Nowadays, if you want the answer to a question, you go to Google, you type in a question, and in most cases, you might get a couple of different scattered results, but if you could put the pieces of the puzzle together, you can, in most cases, find the answer to your question. So with the amount of information that's available out there today, a couple of things happen. First of all, information isn't as scarce as it used to be, and when things aren't as scarce as they were at one time, they tend to lose value. So if I'm sharing a piece of information with you that's extremely hard to find, it's going to be extremely valuable to you. But if you can find it anywhere, the value of it decreases. Okay, so that's one kind of impact that today's world and things like the internet have had on influence and persuasion. And the second thing is overwhelm. With so much available information to people, with so much information available to people, people become overwhelmed. It's like information overload, and it confuses them, and they don't know who to trust or who to believe or what to think. And so a lot of times they suffer from something called analysis paralysis, where they're spending all of their time analyzing their next move, but never actually making it. And so today I want to share with you the top 4 things, the top 4 rules that you can apply in today's world when using influence. So the first rule is you must have an audience. Now, this rule's been in place since the beginning. Without an audience, without someone to actually influence, the influence process can't actually take place. So you have to have an audience, and people have to listen to you, okay? The second thing is that you have to engage them. Now, just because you have an audience doesn't necessarily mean that they're engaged or that they're listening to your message. So you have to find a way to engage them. And the best way to do that is to create such a reputation for yourself that you are such an expert in your field that other people will recommend you to them. There's nothing more powerful than social validation except for social validation from personal sources. So if someone else can personally validate that you are the expert and you are the go-to person in your field, people will trust and listen to you, and they'll be more open to engaging you. The other part of engagement has to do with learning about different cues, different subconscious triggers that you can activate in people, and knowing really the laws of persuasion and influence and how to activate certain mental triggers within people's mind, and knowing the difference between the subconscious mind and the conscious mind and how people think and process information. Once you know all that stuff, that's how you can engage them, okay? The third rule is there must be a mutual understanding. People have to understand what you're saying. Sometimes for you to do that, you have to understand what type of a place your target comes from. You have to know about your target. You have to know how they process information and what their outlook on life and what their morals and values and beliefs are. Because I tell people all the time, you could be telling somebody where to find a bag filled with $1 million, but if you're telling it to them in a language that they don't understand, they're never going to find the money, you're never going to get your message across, you're never going to help them, and they're never going to appreciate anything that you did for them. So you must learn to speak the language that your target understands, okay? That is the third rule. And then the fourth rule that I want to talk to you about is really, I touched on this a minute ago, but it's really knowing the game of persuasion and influence, okay? It's really knowing that there is a bit of a science and a bit of an art behind the influence and persuasion process. Now, if you're a diplomatic person, if you're an outgoing person, if you're a charismatic person, then chances are that you have favorable attributes as it is, and your chances and your ability of influencing other people are going to be higher than those who don't have those attributes. But those attributes are not enough. If you really, really want to become effective and become a master of influence and persuasion, then you need to add this to your repertoire of learning just as you would anything else. Just like goal setting, just like visualization, just like studying, and trying to master whatever field that you're in, just like marketing, just like finance, whatever it is that you want to be successful at, okay? You have to learn and you have to study influence and persuasion and adapt that to whatever it is that you're doing, because it's only going to magnify your results. And so that's the basic reason why I've created InfluenceMaster.com. You can check out my blog updates. I blog pretty frequently, and I love to share free information with people and try to give them the skills that they need to influence people. It's years of research, dedication, study. I mean, I've read thousands of books. I've read, I've watched countless videos. I've attended tons of seminars. And it's something that I really find fascinating and interesting, and I'm sure you will too. And the best part is, it's easy. It's easy stuff. It's not complicated. Once you begin to study it and learn it, you'll pick up on it just like you do anything else. Think about the first time you tried to ride a bike. It seems impossible in the beginning. But then there's that one moment where you just grasp it, and you don't need the training wheels anymore, and you can just ride and glide perfectly without any help, and then it stays that way forever, and you never forget it. It stays ingrained in your memory, and it becomes like second nature to you. It's the same thing with this. All you have to do is pay attention to it and invest some time each day to learning about it, and you'll become better at it. I look forward to sharing some more valuable information with you, and I thank you for visiting the site. Have a great day.